Good morning. I was thinking I haven't done kind of a casual shop update in a while, just kind of hanging out and having you see what's going on. So maybe we can do that today. I have a couple of things that I'm thinking about. Although first of all, I have some orders to pack up, so we can do that. And you know, we have birds. They're like little tiny birds in this birdhouse. I was just watching them, you know, see? So brand new week. One of the first things I like to do, start of a new week, see if did any orders come in over the weekend. So yeah, I'm just kind of getting back to into the swing of things, into videos. I had my dad come visit for a week. He lives in Sweden, so that was really fun. So here we have a mineral and a linseed oil. It's kind of funny, one of my favorite parts about running the business with a wax polish is just wrapping up orders. Take a moment, write some thank you notes. This one is going to Philadelphia. I like to save packaging material in general. You know, if I order stuff and then there's packaging material, I like to reuse that. But sometimes, you know, you use it up and then you think, oh, I haven't played with my hand plane in a couple days. Kind of a nice little thing to warm up and do. You ever asked yourself what is the most efficient way to create packaging materials for a shop? It is definitely not making your own shavings, but it is kind of fun, isn't it? And it's a nice kind of idea, I think. So one of the things that I'm working on right now is figuring out a solar system for our panels. So we currently have a bunch of solar panels that some of them are still in the packages, and we've been kind of going back and forth for quite some time now how to best utilize them, because we don't have an ideal situation in terms of sun. We live on a property and there's a lot of shade, and we're thinking about, okay, how can we use what we have in the most affordable way, make it work, and kind of like utilize it in an interesting way. And I think we've come up with a kind of a cool concept. It involves creating like a backyard kind of walkway structure. We're using the solar panels as a roof. So anyway, it's kind of like what's on my brain right now. So in the shop where we sell the wax polish, we offer 3 different kinds. It is mineral oil, linseed oil, and tung oil polish. And I have made a couple of videos about them, so if you're curious about how I create that, or like how I use the different kinds of polish for different like projects, you can go check that out. So the other day I was looking over my hand planes in here. I have a couple of different hand planes in this space, and some of them are getting a little rusty, which is kind of a shame because they're so, you know, nice, especially this block plane I was just looking at. It has this little rust spot right there, and it's kind of on the verge of being a little bit too big of a rust spot just to remove with the steel wool and wax polish. This one's looking pretty good. This is the one I like to use when I clean up the workbench, for example. And this guy, this is my smoothing plane. This one's looking pretty good as well. So I just had a delivery that came to the door here, and it is... What do you think is in there, August?
A laser.
Laser engraver.
Yeah, it looks...
Okay, you can open it up. See the... Yeah, we can take that out.
I know this one and this one, but I don't know this.
So I've never had a laser printer, so that's gonna be kind of fun to play with. One of the first things that I'm thinking would be really fun to do kind of relates to the solar structure project that I was referring to. This is part of our backyard right here. This is the idea right now. This has changed so many times, but I think this might be actually the way to go, or what we're gonna do right now. So I want to build a structure with panels and have gravel underneath, so there's going to be walkways, but on one section of it we're going to create like a little playhouse for my 5-year-old. And I want to create some really cool signs using the laser printers, kind of like a control panel with different buttons and switches and things that he can control, and you know, using funneling solar down and have a battery and that kind of thing. Main idea about this project is to create like a solar array and funnel the energy into the batteries that we can basically run the shop off of and charge the EV off of and use in the case of an emergency to power the house. That's the idea anyway. The laser printer is going to be cool from that point of view. I'm looking forward to kind of playing with that. I just realized it's not called a laser printer, it's called a laser engraver. A laser printer is a very different kind of product. It's clarification there. I want to take apart this block plane and clean it and see if we can get this rust pot off of it. So first of all, let's take it apart. And when you kind of look at it, I mean, there's like little rust spots kind of everywhere inside it, and it's kind of dirty too. To start off with, I just want to kind of give it a bath. So I just have some water, some soap, just kind of remove debris, and yeah, and see what it's dirt and what's not dirt. So I got an old toothbrush. This comes off too. I was also just kind of thinking about what should my next joint be. So lately I have been kind of getting into, like, I love to go back to basics, right? I think it's so much fun to just kind of explore things that you haven't done in a while. And even when you if you are familiar with woodworking, you don't do all the joints all the time, right? And oftentimes you may do woodworking joints using, you know, certain tools. So just kind of go back to basics and play with them by hand. Kind of a fun thing to do. So the last one I did was this guy right here. This is the mitered half lap joint. So it looks like a miter here, but it's a half lap on the sides. I think it's a rather useful joint in that sense, right? Because you can always use a picture frame, and makes it a little bit more special than just making a miter. So that one was kind of fun. So now the question is, what should I create next? I have a couple of ideas, but if you have a joint that you think I should tackle, let me know. Because I'm kind of making a list of ones that I want to play with. They don't have to be hand tools. They can be done, you know, I want to make cool joints to do on the table saw, that kind of idea too, or techniques to use, make joints using a router, and yeah. This looks a lot better. And this looks better, but it looks a little rusty. Let's create a kind of rust removal bath. There are a bunch of different kind of rust removal products on the market. So we'll put it in here. Let this sit for a couple hours. You could even let it sit overnight if you want to. So it's kind of thinking about this whole idea about solar power and like how solar is really cool, but also not very efficient, right? I mean, solar is expensive, and if you don't have the optimal location to put your solar panels, you're not going to get as much out of them, right? And the only reason why sometimes it makes sense to have solar is if you can funnel that energy into batteries, so you can capture it and you don't have to, you know, like, okay, 2 o'clock is the optimal time. This is between 2 and 3 o'clock. That's when we do all of our laundry and our dishwasher, and, you know, we turn everything on during that hour. If you have to live like that, I mean, that can be kind of tricky. So if you have batteries to funnel that power into, I mean, that is certainly cool. And if you manage to get a hold of solar panels that are not, you know, super expensive, that are used, you can buy, you know, panels at a discount that are not like at 100%. It makes more sense, and then you can kind of play with the idea, right? So what I'm trying to figure out right now is the idea of flexibility versus cost. So when you are going to put up like a solar array, you don't want to have them all in series, right? Because then the whole system would be either on or off. You want to break it up so that part of the system could be in sun and work, whereas other things can be in shade. But the more individual you make it, the more wiring you need. And then we need to funnel the wiring into the shop. So it gets more expensive and it gets more complicated the more individual and the more flexible you make it. So you need to kind of strike a balance there. And then you need to think about material cost. And what we're going to do, we're going to concrete post into the ground and then framing lumber, so 10-foot post. This is go into the
You see this?
Oh
this
yeah,
is
like a stepper motor. So currently it is 4 o'clock, so it's an expensive time for us to use electricity, so we just shut the power to the street and just using the batteries right now to use the shop and any machinery in here as well. And eventually this is where the solar system will constantly funnel power. This is also a new system we've been working on lately with this inverter here, which can output either 120 or 240 volts, which means that you can use the system now to run the machines that require 240 volts. So the table saw, the CNC, the mini splits, that wasn't possible before. So we have a couple of batteries here, and we're going to add a couple more for this larger system later on. But anyway, everything is running off the batteries right now. So currently we are running 400, 500, so about 1,000 watts to run the mini split, the dehumidifier. Here's another project in the works. This is all 2x4 material that's been resawn. This has been resawn and planed. So I love the idea of using framing lumber, cheap lumber, to build something, right? So the plan is to turn this into like a deck box, a large kind of outdoor piece where you can put your cushions and things like that to protect them from the rain, you know, for your outdoor furniture. So quite a lot of material. It needs to be a relatively large box because the cushions are quite sizable, you know. So that's a lot of wood. I think the best idea is to first paint it and then assemble to make sure we protect the wood properly. Since it's not, you know, pressure treated or anything like that, you want to make sure it's going to be outside. You want to make sure it's painted everywhere and covered. So I just turned this over, and wow, this really, this has been about an hour now, I would say, something like that. That's pretty cool, huh? This is really coming out very nicely. I was just kind of doing this and I was thinking to myself, like, what's really inside this stuff? Like, what's in this rust remover? This is a WD-40 product. Of course, nowhere on the box or on the thing does it say what's inside it. Obviously, it breaks down rust. So, because you can do your own solutions, right? That have vinegar or like baking soda. But I don't think they're quite as effective because this stuff really works. But that would be kind of interesting to do like a side-by-side testing. Okay, so about an hour and a half, 2 hours have passed. That spot is looking a lot better. It's not rusted anymore. I mean, it's a little darker. Just put in a chisel here too. It has a couple spots. Oh man, I love seeing a change like this. That was not very difficult to do. I mean, I don't want to keep this in this rust removing solution like overnight because there are painted parts in here, and you know, if you leave that in too long, it's going to start to break that down as well. So I think this is looking pretty good. Now let's get a little steel wool and see if we can work this out with some wax polish instead. Here is some of our mineral oil wax polish in one of the wax pot. This is kind of my go-to anytime I do protect my tools. So let's take, this is pretty fine steel wool, and I just put a little bit on here, and then this, in addition to removing rust, it also protects it from further rust. This is ideally what you should do relatively often, especially if your shop is, you know, does have humidity issues, or if it's a little damp sometimes. If you just take a day every now and then and apply some wax polish with some steel wool on most of your tools, you're not going to have nearly as many issues as if you don't. Of course, we're not always on top of things, are we? We say things we should do, but it's kind of a nice habit to get into as well. So I'm just going to kind of put some wax polish everywhere on the whole. Oh yeah, oh that spot is, I mean, it's practically gone now. You can see right there was where that black spot was. So it's almost completely gone. Just kidding. And yeah, this one comes with mineral wax polish inside and an extra tin of wax polish also, so that you can refill it. Because the whole idea of something like this, I think, is to not have a huge pot, you know, that can get dirty, or, you know, just over time you can refill it. So let's see if we can figure out how to put this back, assemble it. Every time I've tried to disassemble a plane, I need a moment to think about, okay, how did this go together again? I mean, usually it's not a very complicated or difficult setup, but you do want to make sure that you do it right. So we need that there. And this fits in there. And then this guy clicks in there, right? Okay, there we go, down. Should probably make a video about the block plane. The humble block plane. It's a cool tool because it's used by everybody, right? Okay, now that is gorgeous. But that's so much cleaner, and there's no rust.
And how do you take a blade off?
I took it off. It's like a whole process to
And
take
may
it
I
off.
see?
There's a blade inside, but you can see here. Okay, just don't touch right there.
Yeah, but how do you take it off?
Okay, I'll show you. Hold on. Anyway, I hope you guys have a good night. Thanks for hanging out with me. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments below. And yeah, I'll see you guys soon. This was kind of fun. This was fun to relax, like just let you guys hang out. Så där, så det är som ett pussel. Det går in där.
May I try one time?
Okej, försiktigt. Okej, fint. So what do we got here? It's beautiful, huh? And where's the rest spot?